Charlie, you had invited someone, right? I just want to wait for them to make sure that we don't miss anybody.
Oh, yeah, they're in the server, but they said that they're gonna go on the voice thing in a second.
Cool, no rush. I just wanted to make sure we did not forget anybody. Awesome. So we are officially live on YouTube, and yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So thank you everybody for showing up to celebrate Charlie. We're really excited about Author of All Ill, and you're going to get to hear from that book tonight slash today, depending on where you are. And yeah, I'm personally really stoked for this. So housekeeping, I typically read a piece to start everything off so that nobody has to go first. And then I'll also throw some links in the chat. Charlie's book is available now. We've got some really amazing other books in the shop available for pre-order. And we also just put out our quarterly newsletter. So I'll throw the link in the chat if you want to subscribe to that as well, if you want to get the next one. So I won't hold everyone up too long. I'm just going to read one piece. It is called Regrets Only. It has a brief content warning for gender dysphoria. Regrets only. Regret vanity. Regret drinking. Regret the way your hair hung down to the small of your back until you were almost 24, unkempt and every bit of 2 pounds, and matched just the physical weight of how hot people used to say you were. Regret kissing strangers in Ford Tauruses. Regret accepting invitations to foreign beds. Staple your regret to the top of your college transcript. Proclaim you regret nothing. In actuality, regret everything. Don't regret asking whether there was more for you than performing girlhood. Don't regret continuing to ask. Maybe regret how long it took, but don't regret where you come from. Don't regret yourself now, femme-bodied but genderless, cropped hair and wearied knees from years of crawling to where you now stand proudly. Don't regret the body you can still hold, the innate joy of knowing you are supposed to be here. All right. I am going to turn things over at this point. Charlie, take it away.
Thank you. Wow, that was great. Also, thank you for starting that way. It makes me feel a lot better. Whew, I get really nervous with speaking in front of people. Um, but yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm gonna read a few pieces today. Most of them are going to be from this book, from Author of All Ill. But I also have a couple of others that kind of hint at what I'm working on now and what I'm gonna be doing in the future. The first poem I'm gonna read is also the first in the book. And the first three are also sonnet adjacent. This one kind of sets the tone for the rest of the book, as it's a sonnet where Satan reflects in the immediate aftermath of his fall. It first appeared in the Minuteman Project, and it's titled Ad Inferos, which means into hell. Ad Inferos. Upon the ruined earth I lay and weep, an angel fallen, stripped of love and flight, drowned in burning lakes and oceans deep, my crowned brow by hand of holy might. Tainted I lay, torn flesh where wings once bloomed, a faded cherub reaping what he sought. In blood and ash this disobedience loomed, though diligent with tooth and nail I fought. And yet I feel the blaze of sinful fire, incite the wicked apple of my eye, with visions of an obdurate desire, fall to crawl, to wander free or die. In falling forfeit I the line I crossed, for what but time and time again be lost. Right, so that's that one. The next one is not quite a sonnet, but I included it in that category anyway because it's kind of adjacent. I wrote it about the process of realizing my own transness and sort of imagining my future self, or maybe my inner self, reading to who I was as a teen, and leading me to the realization that maybe I wasn't that normal, quote unquote, after all. So it kind of starts with free verse and then gradually progresses into a sonnet. And it's called Resurrectionem, which means resurrection. Extant moon falling and waning, as flesh and faded ghosts sat side by side. I shouldn't be here, but I am, and so are you. Your gaze ahead and my head hanging low. There's something wrong with me here, in the midst of holy chains and scalding sheaths. Man and woman, either or, are nothing I have ever understood. You said blue words need not be kin to sorrow. Ill-fitting ghosts were meant to be cast out. Yet how to tear a mask I never borrowed, and how to wander through this world without. I said, I feel the stir of rebel demons wake inside these walls I never claimed as mine, you said. Let demons roam and devils soothe your ache, when it's the world who needs to fall in line. Did you know then what I'd become thereafter? That I'd reject the twofold laws of man, that I'd invite the gods of all disaster and mutiny to hold onto my hand. When moonlight hides and shadows turn to fire, let terror die and doubt give birth to ire. Right, so this next one is the last of the sonnets I'm going to read from this book, though there's another one later on. I often feel like there's very little in this world that this world cannot take from me and from people like us, and like there's very little that's truly mine and inalienable. So I wrote this poem kind of to take back that which will always be mine and can never be taken away by another. Importantly, it's a sonnet in which the title answers the question. It was first published in the Minnesota Project as well, and it's called Necitiam et insidias diaboli, which translates to the wickedness and snares of the devil. Necitiam et insidias diaboli. What else remains in corners shrouded dark, that failed to live and later failed to die? What cowered helpless when a sharp remark was met with silence as its sole reply? What else remains like crumbs upon my plate, faint reminder of relinquished fights, a breathing witness that the hands of fate may write my days but fall asleep at nights? I hear the future like a chiming bell, or still horizon past an endless crowd, yet ancient ghosts retrace their steps from hell to speak their words beneath their tainted shrouds. This flesh it bears the stubborn wounds of yore, this fate it lies in wait beyond the door. Great. So these next ones that I have for you aren't sonnets. This first one is prose poetry. It's called abstract. I named it that both because it talks about the abstract things in life, and also because it serves as an abstract in the academic sense, as in a concise summary of something. It might need a content warning for mentions of abuse. Abstract. I concern myself with the concrete of late. How many beats per minute? How many days since contact? How many drops of sedative? The abstract holds truth, but not certainty, I think. How to know the difference between that which is true and that which I believe with the strongest of convictions to be true? Does the distinction make any material difference, he says and she says aside? Because I come from a long line of holy transgressions, a string of violence in the name of love and eyes cast downwards in imposed self-effacement. What would I be if I hadn't been the chick against your strike? What if I hadn't been the body bearing the marks of your ownership? Who would I be if I'd never been a fiend by opposition? And would I be at all if compliance and rebellion hadn't danced the way they did from birth to freedom? These are the dangerous abstract, the penances in waiting. So I concern myself with the concrete of late. How many pills per morning? How many nightmares of your voice? So this next one is kind of a mix between creative nonfiction and prose poetry, leaning toward the former, I think. It's called Deum Patrem Omnipotentem, which means God Father Almighty. And it may need a content warning for mentions of homophobia and transphobia. Deum Patrem Omnipotentem. My father told me that to say I don't believe in God is to acknowledge the incontrovertibility of his existence. To believe, he said, to put faith in, to trust. To believe, I would mutter, to be deluded. He said I couldn't refuse to have faith in God if I truly didn't think he existed at all. He always sold his $1,000,000 ideas in a different plane, along a path of tossed up dirt or colored shirts with sweat stains spreading from the armpits and heirloom tomatoes. But when it came to church and God and whether or not he loved me the way he loved the children who shared his DNA, he walked on clouds. Sometimes I thought I saw them dissipating, thought I saw the outline of his feet, maybe a hint of gravel or marble or stone beneath all that turbulent gray. When we watched documentaries about the bottom of the ocean on Saturday nights, just the two of us and Animal Planet, when he lent me his book of quantum physics explained in words both of us could digest, when he'd put his arm around me as I stood next to him at the bank while he ran an errand. But the clouds would always thicken again, his earth-dusted boots disappearing so that it looked as though he floated everywhere he went. I never liked tomatoes. Worse than that, I've always found them incompatible with the way my senses communicate with my brain. Maybe this was an offense to him, to a man who made his living building houses for Verdants and Crinsons. Maybe that was why we went to war every weekday dinner, my fork trembling with the aftershock of his commands. I would eat my penance and gag, bit my tongue to tame the alien presence, but it always recoiled in terror. I took to swallowing the slices whole. I guess that's just as well, that he is as fleeting and turbulent as the clouds that hid his feet and the path they trod. Maybe he knew what I was the moment he laid eyes on me, 2 years old and fatherless and odd, which is to say maybe God knew all along. The day the clouds dissipated was the day he told me about how gay people were sinners and diseased. The day he said no matter what I called myself, I'd always be his little girl. It turns out his boots have always marched on hallowed ground. This next one I wrote for my younger siblings, without saying a lot, my younger siblings who haven't made it out yet, and it's called Unholy Ghosts. Sometimes my arms grow heavy with the ghost of your sleeping form, your eyes shut lightly, twitching with the motion of all the dreams you must float through, there, in the space between my aching arms and the rise and fall of my lungs. I took your scent in, sweetness and talcum, and perhaps a hint of something else that time has washed away from my own skin. Would you still look up at me, eyes wide and wondrous and sleepy and huge, if only I were there, to sing the words I used to when your head still rested on my chest? And is there anyone left, there, in the vicinity of your halo, that speaks in whispers in place of shatterings and ash, that sleeps, with tongue-tipped rhymes and half-awake swings of a creaky rocking chair, heavy, with 4 hearts in one? So this next piece is one that I wrote kind of quickly and emotionally. It's one of those that sort of oozes out of you and, yeah, you don't really see it coming. And I think that it was actually included in the book later on at the editing stage because that's when I wrote it and I just really, really, really needed it there. It's a short one about the anger that comes with trauma, and it's titled Inheritance. Inheritance. I strive to keep myself from trying to wound you into sanity. Heart-shaped lock prescriber cry, tears of sacrificial flesh. I never thought myself as cruel, but something climbs and bubbles. Acidly it ulcers up my throat. Inheritance of maiming. I bleed. That is, I bled. So this brings me to the last piece I'm going to read from author of All Ill. It was first published in the Midnight Mass anthology, and it's fittingly called Fated Endings. Fated Endings. What was it they said about God and his mercy? What was it about redemption, resurrection? About life, ended, lost, eternal, fated endings lit by the glow of pearly gates? I must be sorry for the way I've lived as though I never meant to fall repentant on my knees. I cannot lie. I lived solely for the leaping at the birth of every fall. Yes, Tommy, Midnight Mice Anthology. Link it. Um, so now I have just two short pieces that aren't in the book, but then I thought it would be cool to read a couple of them that are indicative of my future directions. I'm studying for my master's in literature, and this semester I've been writing a thesis about monstrosity in contemporary horror short fiction, which has kind of intensified my lifelong obsession with horror and the Gothic and all of that. So now I'm going to read a very short Midwest Gothic piece that was first published in the Hell is Real anthology. It's called Huffstown, USA. The breeze brought. Oh, I forgot to say. I forgot to say it's like I would say flash fiction. Huffstown, USA. The breeze brushed the cornstalks southwards, the city of tilted green swaying softly in front of his eyes, expanding ever closer to the horizon, yet ever just as far from the world's edge. He took the first step into their territory, knowing all too well that he should do anything but. He took the second, forgetting for a moment all the reasons why reason dictated he turn back, and turn back now, and turn back quickly. Yet, two steps became three, became four, became countless. His descent into the liminality of husks on the side of the road seemingly faded and inevitable. He noticed, though only vaguely, only as a tickle in the back of his mind, that the crops around him, the tips of which had once brushed his shoulder like hands, he thought, like hands, now ruffled his hair maternally. They smelled of summer road trips and late-night drives, sounded like the scratch of radio static and the way he'd slurped the remnants of his roadside slushies, rudely, unapologetically. The sun shifted downwards, grew and waned and danced above his head, casting shadows upon the dirt. He could almost trick his mind into seeing them as humanoid shapes, decapitated or running or entirely like himself. Only not like himself, not anymore. The heat baked his husky hair, the soil swallowed his blistered feet and locked them in place, locked him in place, frozen like a deer in fateful headlight. He thought he felt the wind pushing his body southwards, swaying it with his ears in their eternal dance. But only for a moment, and then he thought nothing at all. The end. um, right, so for the very last piece I have for you, I want to read another sonnet. But this time it's sort of, I would call it a Miltonic Gothic sonnet. It just kind of mixes those two things. I wrote it about the house my friends and I moved into this year. It's a house, very nice house, built in the 20s. And when we moved in, we found random old children's drawings in weird dark crawl spaces, and notably a briefcase full of bottles of holy water. So it just kind of inspired this sonnet about a very scary house. And the sonnet is called The House on Strawberry Hill. Upon a hill once loomed a crooked house, and deafening the rattles through its halls, carnivorous the ice upon its walls. No man dared more than scurry as a mouse. A room where frozen sinisters would hide, the basement had the living sobbing prayers. Don't mind the thing that sleeps under the stairs, or glance into your windows from outside. No, better to stay away from places wretched, lest wandering eye on abject horror fall, to the fragile mind's bitter end or deepest sorrow. For if you stubborn enter and you catch it, so fast at the edge of your eye, was it there at all? By then you may have squandered your tomorrow. Yay! So that's everything I had for you. Yeah, holy water briefcase. We actually kept it because why wouldn't you keep something as cool as that if you found it in your house, right?
I was about to say, as you should. Like,
Yeah.
well, awesome. Charlie, did you invite someone to read? Did I miss that?
Oh no, no, I didn't.
Oh, just to attend. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Are we
Yeah.
waiting on another reader? Should I be introducing someone
No, no,
right now?
no,
Okay, no
no, no, no. I
worries.
was just yeah.
No, no worries at all. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. We would love it if you took a look at our store and bought Author of All Ill. We know international shipping is really expensive, so we're working on a way to fix that. So if you are international, just hang tight, and I'm working on it. And yeah, thank you all so much for coming out. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everybody.